I believe we have everyone back. All right, I believe everybody's logged on again to our regular board meeting. So now I will entertain a motion to adjourn our board meeting.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Barbara. We have a motion to adjourn. Amanda, can you take our roll?
David?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Barbara? Mary?
Yes.
Okay. Our meeting is adjourned, and we will take a small break before we begin our budget meeting.
Okay. It'll be the same Zoom meeting though.
Same
Correct?
Zoom link, yes.
All right. How much time you want to do?
Oh, wait just a second. Eric.
No, I was just saying I'll sign out. So if anybody needs me, shoot me an email. Still don't know anything on our, I don't have any reports from the Supreme Court. So.
Thank you, Eric, for everything.
Can we just keep this tab open, or do I need to close? Okay. All right.
Just stay on where you're at and go do what you need to do.
So 10:30.
Is that okay? It's about 15 minutes. Okay. At 10:30, we will resume and begin our budget meeting. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
we got a 10-minute break here before we start our budget meeting. Yeah, it's going on pretty good. I've got some things to tell you, but I can't on this phone. How's things going? Oh my. Yeah.
Everyone. Okay, I've shortened this to try to be mindful of your time and to get us to talk more about the financial information and where we want to go with the budget this year. So welcome to our first budget planning work session. Hold on, I'm having trouble scrolling to the slide. Okay, there we go. All right, so the object of today is to go through the goals and objectives of the budget for staff and council and discuss where we are financially. We'll take that information and build our department budget requests that are due to me by March the 5th. We'll come back together March the 25th to prioritize the needs and objectives. You'll receive a balanced draft budget April the 20th. But we won't review that until April the 29th. May the 13th and 20th, we'll advertise the public hearing in the Sylva Herald. At 5:30 on May the 27th, there will be a public hearing with citizen input on the budget that we've built. And then hopefully it will be approved June the 10th. So please remember that we build this budget to maintain our assets, both as a place and as an organization. And please be thinking about our vision as we're moving through this entire budget process. Everything that that you all want to do as a board and as the town in the upcoming year should be thought about and considered as we're building this budget. So looking at our current financial situation, Lynn, do you want to give us an update of where we did well and where we fell short? Lynn, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi there. So yes, I was going to go over the financial report as of December 31st, 2020. And I also have another slide after this that I'm going to highlight on a few things that would be of interest for the upcoming budget. So I'm sure y'all are used to seeing these reports, but we have our investment portfolio first, and you can see our investment amounts. Keep in mind that that amount is right after most of the taxes have came in. We get a rather large amount the first week in January, but a lot of our taxes come in December and November. You can see the interest rates are quite low. We do have one that has remained up. That's could change at any time, but I've been pleased with that one. And I try to keep money in that and then transfer out so we get the best interest rate. The cash management trust is low, and I am pursuing some stuff possibly to get a better interest rate, but I'll update y'all if that's the case. I have to, if we decide to go with a different bank, I have to notify y'all in the monthly meeting. Usually I do that through the consent agenda. So just to let you know, I am checking on that to try to get a better interest rate while still remaining diversified. The state revenue analysis, you can see where we should be and the percentages that's been collected. I do want to go over the sales tax on another slide because we've actually received one more payment since this report. So I'll wait to address the state revenues. Our fund balance analysis, you can see we're currently at 77.6 and the goal is 77.89. As you recall, a month or so ago, we appropriated what we consider over our goal into, typically we do that into the capital reserve fund. However, knowing that Allen Street repairs are coming up, we felt it was best, since this is capital also, just to earmark that money and not move it into that capital reserve fund. So as you can see, that was 426,000. And part of the reason we had this amount was the goal for the municipalities our size has decreased by almost 3%, which equated to $165,000. So as the goal went down, that allowed more money to be appropriated for that. So I feel we're in a good position right now. We're close to that goal, and that includes the what was appropriated to date on that. And we've had 5 general fund appropriations. Any questions on this page from anyone?
Yeah, so the 77.6% we're at does not include the 426. So where'd you say that was that moved to like capital funds? Is that what my
No, it does include the 426. If you see that minused out, and it's sitting, it's not in the capital reserve fund. When we presented that, or when I presented that on the consent agenda, I asked that just be earmarked. So it's sitting in general fund, but it's in its own line, and we'll have that to go towards Allen Street.
Right, so the 3.1 million, that's 77.6% of our budget, is the unappropriated fund balance.
Right, right. It's the available fund balance. And what I do is I start out with the audited unassigned, and then I subtract what's been appropriated to date. And that is an appropriation of 426,000 from the fund balance.
So just going forward, sorry, I don't know if there's a place to jump in, but if Allen Street winds up being double that will come out of that bottom, that'll come out of the 3.1.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so okay. All right, and then up top is just our capital reserve funds. It's the general fund, capital reserve, the fire department, and then the revolving loan fund. And those are monies that's available. I have subtracted out any appropriations within the current year. That does include on the general fund, the 96,243 does include the additional 15,000 for the Durangos. So that's the current balance for those. Our Fisher Creek analysis, you can see the current invested amount, the interest rate is to date is 14,819 for the current fiscal year, and the rates, and then the total interest on all of the investments we've had over the years, and how much total interest we've received on that money. And then over to the right-hand side is just the Fisher Creek funds available. The difference between that and the current invested is we had an appropriation of 37,400 out of that. So I have to subtract that out. So that's the difference. And then you can see how much we've currently expended towards the water quality, which we're required to spend 40% of that money that was received. And I keep track of that so we know where we're at. Amanda will address the property taxes in her report. And then on the outstanding loans, the garbage truck and backhoe, that will be paid off in this physical year. So that'll be $19,000 that's not going to be used on any outstanding loan for this upcoming budget. And then the fire department's ladder truck will be paid off in 21-22 physical year. And then the remaining loans are going to be in the 23-24 physical year. Any questions on this page? Okay, do we have that other sheet page? The revenue analysis one?
I'm not sure.
Okay, if not,
I think it's out of order.
Okay. I've got my copy.
Let me stop. Okay, if you'll start, I'll stop sharing and try to find it.
Okay. So I wanted to just address a few of the revenues for this current year. The interest on investments, as a reminder, actually going into the upcoming budget, we lost $52,000 on the interest on investments, or that was what we anticipated. I only budgeted $5,000, and to date we've received $13,000 on general fund. So we've met the budget, but it's because that one interest rate remained high. Plus we had a CD that expired in November, and I just rolled it out of that because the other interest rate was better. So my point is, I don't anticipate adding any more really to the interest on investments for the upcoming year. The sales tax collection has been very surprising, a pleasant surprise. If you recall, at budget time last year, we had no idea how to even anticipate the budget for that. So we have received 5 months of collections, and I went back and compared to this same time last year, and we are right at $60,000 above what we were at this time last year. That equates to 16.55% increase from the prior year. And then the average should be right now, based on our budget, of 41%, and we're close to 65% on the budget. So I'm hoping it will continue. And that's apparently statewide from what I'm reading. So I did, when I was trying to prepare for this yesterday, I found some information on why this is happening, or they think. This is a report we get from the league, and it said that consumers have shifted their purchases from non-taxable transportation, entertainment, and recreation spending to taxable retail spending is one of the reasons. They're also fully capturing the online retail sales now, which I think in prior years, it was not a full year as from what I'm reading. So it's a full year of the online retail spending, which people are being at home and spending more also. And then there's refunds that they have to issue. For example, the town, we spend our sales tax, we pay for sales tax up front, but then at the end of the year, I request that back and get a refund on it. So they're saying that the refunds are not growing as much as the overall growth of sales. So that was some of the explanations of the differences there. Going forward, I still think, I think we'll be able to budget definitely more than last year, but I think we'll need to still be a little conservative because just during these times, I mean, we don't know, you know, what it's going to be like for the next year. But on the utility franchise collections, we have 2 quarters that we've received so far. This is actually down from the prior year by about $9,000 and a decrease of around 5%. However, we're right on track for the budget. We're actually like $1,000 ahead of the budget. So budget-wise, we're doing good, but that's just something to keep in mind for the upcoming budget, that we may have to budget less on that. And then one other revenue source that was really not on my radar, and it's not a large source, but it's the vehicle tax rental. The county actually collects that and pays us on a monthly basis. And so far we've gotten 7 months worth of payments. I had budgeted $23,000 and we've received $2,300. So that is definitely down. It's not a huge amount in the overall scope of the budget, but I just wanted to point that out. And that's basically like the car rental companies. And I believe it's like leased vehicles as well. So that's really down. And I think that's all I have, unless someone has questions.
Any questions?
Amanda, do you want to talk about tax collection rates?
Sure. So we closed fiscal year 1920 at a 97.85% collection rate. And that was close to the previous year as well. December of 2020, we were at 75.83%. So most of the collections are typically in at that point. As of yesterday, we're at 91.47. So we're on track to collect roughly the same amount that we collected last year as well. So at this time, we have sent out garnishments to those that we either typically do or that we have the information on, and we're in the process of having the attorney letters drafted and sent out. So that's forthcoming as well. So I think in the times that we're in, maintaining, you know, a decent tax rate, we've done well. We do have more people on a payment plan this year. I expected that. And we're certainly willing to work with anybody that needs one. But all in all, by June 30th of 2021, we expect the rate to be pretty much the same. Any questions?
Any questions of Amanda? None?
So looking at our fiscal year 2020-2021 budget, our general fund budget was $4,162,129. Other financing sources were $110,762, and our approved general government budget was $3,358,761. This, where my tax dollar slide is from the audited financial statements from the prior year, and it just is just to give you a breakdown of where most of the money the town is budgeting is going. Okay, so thinking about what we accomplished through the 2020-2021 budget, we maintained the current level of services, replaced our imperative equipment, kept up with our capital replacement schedule, retained all of our staff, funded our post-retirement benefits. This was the first year that we did a contract position for the Main Street director, and we maintained the current tax rate. Our post-employment benefits, we funded OPEB at $125,000 and the separation allowance at $100,000. Replaced 2 police vehicles, put exterior cameras on public works, and budgeted for a green infrastructure plan for Bridge Park. Looking at the upcoming budget, up to 2.5% merit increase will be proposed to keep up with the salary study recommendation. This is an annual proposal. The salary study and pay classification plan calls for between 2 and 5%, but this will depend on what we can afford. The CPI from December of this year to December of 19 was 1.4%. So that's the proposed COLA that you'll see, or cost of living adjustment that you'll see in the draft budget. Looking at what we can expect in 2021, 2022. It's the county's year for the property tax revaluation. This will be realized in the 21-22 budget. Other post-employment benefits, please remember that this is for retiree medical insurance to cover the cost of it when personnel retire until they're Medicare eligible. And then the separation allowance is a supplemental retirement maintained by the state for police officers paid until they are 62 years old. This depends, the cost of it depends on employees, who's retiring, the cost of medical insurance, and inflation. But it's important to remember that we're financially obligated to pay for this. So we do not know the cost of medical insurance yet. We typically find that out in around April. The liability for other post-employment benefits as of June 30th was $832,291. In last year's budget, we decreased this to $125,000 from $150,000. And we estimate meeting this unfunded balance by June 30th of this year. So that's great news. Looking at our upcoming retirements, we currently have 4 retirees. 6 are eligible this year. 6 are eligible in 2024, 2025. So we need to be still funding this at the full level. Separation allowance, 4 are currently retired, 4 are eligible in 21, 22 and 25, 26. Our separation allowance liability of June 30th is $483,061. We'll propose continuing to contribute $100,000 to this. And our unfunded obligation is $157,037. Additional budget issues upcoming, 107 sidewalks. We know that the project is put off till 2024. We've currently earmarked $150,000 $50,000 was budgeted in the 1920 budget, but we were not able to budget in the last budget. Skyland Drive, the town's cost is $281,200. We have spent $89,200 to date, leaving a remaining balance of $192,000. So now we're to the section on budget focus items, unless you all have any questions.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so is the sidewalk for the 107, do we plan on, is that, like, is it gonna go up since, every time we push projects back, they become more expensive. So we're expecting it to be higher.
Yes, I do think we need to plan on it being higher. And even though it's several years away, if we can afford to put money towards it, I think we need to be earmarking that.
Okay. And the Skyland sidewalk, so is that going to happen just, so you talked about it earlier. So when do you think it's going to happen? When do you think it's going to be done?
I don't know. I just received word this week that they're going to resume it.
Okay. So that, who knows that? What was their timeline to actually do it? Like once they started?
2 years.
Okay.
And our 89,000 is for studies, things like that. Like what?
No, we pay, since it's not a STIP project, we pay 20%. So that's 20% of right of way and 20% of engineering that's been spent so far. The town has a 20% match.
Okay, gotcha.
So we have 150,000 set aside already for the sidewalks, including the 50,000 we budgeted in 1920. And then I thought we had already set aside like 160,000 in last year's budget for the Skyland sidewalk before it got delayed. Is that not still set aside, or do we roll that back into funds?
Yes, that's what's in there. Yes, that's what's budgeted in there.
Okay.
It's part of the 281.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not saying we need to allocate an additional 192 this year. That's just what we have left to pay on it.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so at this point, I'd like the department heads to talk about their needs. How I'm going to do that this year is I'm going to type in a Word document since we're not in person and with dots. And I would like you to, after I type the needs and the wants, I'll email you all the list, and then you can, I'll give you a number of fake dots to submit. If you want to email me back the list with however many points you want to assign to each item, or if you want it to be confidential, you can print it out and leave it in the Dropbox at Town Hall, and I will tally them and send it back to you. Jake, do you want to start with your needs and wants?
Yes, ma'am.
I just need a second to get to the part where I'm going to type the list.
Just let me know when you're ready.
You can start talking.
Okay. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to do the needs first, followed by the wants second. My number one need this year is another half-ton fleet pickup truck. This will be a F-150 size truck to stay on our capital replacement schedule. We'll need to replace one truck a year of our light trucks for this year and over the next 3 years. And the amount that I'd like to request for that is $29,500. This is a pretty straightforward request. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have about it, but if you don't have questions about it, I'll move on. Okay. All right. The next request I'd like to make this year is a Polaris utility vehicle. This will be used for trail maintenance at Pinnacle Park and Black Rock Creek, as well as for events here, festivals of the police department for emergency response on those properties, as well as just maintenance. Dennis Desmond with Mainspring, in his annual report this last year on Pinnacle Park, wrote a letter, and I'll be happy to share it with you if you'd like to see that, recommending that the West Fork of trail, the whole West Fork trail system be closed to vehicle access, and pared down in width for, it's only like a 5 to 6 foot trail instead of what it, you could drive a standard size vehicle through there right now. This is for erosion measures, control measures, and ecological stuff as far as sediment winding up in the creeks and all of that stuff. It's extremely hard on our vehicles, our trucks, to go up those trails for maintenance as it is right now. And that's only on the Pinnacle property. We haven't started any maintenance yet on the Black Rock Creek property. And because it is so inaccessible at this time, a utility vehicle from the Fisher Creek trailhead will be a quicker way in to the Black Rock Creek property than the drive to Cherokee and back up to the other side at this point. This will be a vehicle that I can put up to 6 crew people in. We can do trail maintenance. It has a 6 foot footprint. And like I said, it'll be, not only will it be safer for our employees, it'll be more ecologically sound and, more ecologically sound. And it's just all around more efficient way to do trail maintenance up there.
So is that going to be like a gator kind of thing, or
of sorts? Yeah, a gator that carries more passengers.
Okay.
Just because we often send teams of 2 to 3 people in there for trail maintenance, and by the time you get tools and water and lunch and first aid kit, it's a bit of a crowd in a gator. So
right. And then did you say that also for events that would also be replace the golf cart?
Absolutely. Well, it replace or supplement, greening up the mountains, Treat Street, parades, Christmas parades, anything like that. It's always a lot easier to get around in a utility vehicle than it is a truck. I'll add right now that if somebody were to roll, break a leg or something up there, the response time would be much, much quicker, especially in the more remote places like Black Rock Creek. Then the response time is much better in that than it is in a truck.
In that situation too, wouldn't you have, but Jackson County Search and Rescue would also respond, correct?
Also, yes. Mm-hmm.
This is a vehicle that the police department could use as well, correct?
Yes, we would absolutely be
a shared asset.
Absolutely.
And is this thing like a base model, or is this a model that you could potentially in the future upgrade in terms of like better tires or something that drags behind it, or something like that?
Yeah, these things are pretty versatile. The one that I'm describing isn't exactly a base model because of the additional passenger capacity and a roof and a windshield, just to help guys, because it's miserable if you get all the way up in there and it starts raining, or in the summertime. It's nice for shade and stuff like that. So we have on multiple occasions had to weather out thunderstorms up there doing trail maintenance. So I wanted to have a little bit of a way to get out of the weather. And that stuff is also nice during events to have some shade too. As far as tires, and there's all kinds of implements you can tow trailers with them. You could, for moving cones around or whatever at events. There's all kinds of add-ons for these sorts of things in the future.
What's a typical lifespan of one of those? Do you have an
I would
idea?
expect this vehicle to last 10 plus years.
Did you say $20,000?
Yeah, 18,568 page for the one that I have.
I'm gonna do 19,000 then.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments on that? Okay. For my third request, I would like to request a part-time sanitation employee. This will be a garbage truck driver. It'll be a 16-hour-a-week position. And at the rate that we're proposing, it's cost $14,000 a year. Some reasoning behind this: manpower, especially primarily in the sanitation department, is one of our biggest obstacles in public works right now, because we've got most of our human resources 2 days a week tied up doing sanitation routes, be it garbage or recycling, metal collection, brush collection. With a full-time driver, that not only gets my employee that drives the truck off the truck and completing other tasks, it also gets a guy off of the back of the truck that can be used for doing other things as well. The mechanic right now, Zach Sarles, is the current garbage truck driver. Coming off the truck would allow him to do a lot more proactive preventative maintenance on our aging vehicle fleet, rather than the reactionary sort of things that he's doing right now when we do have a problem. Freeing him up to do preventative maintenance, I think, could save a lot of money in future fleet maintenance costs for sure. And the additional sanitation employee now could come off, and I want that person to streamline our mowing process in the summer, because that is the other huge time component of our staff right now. So, and that gives either of those employees some upward mobility that they don't have when they're stuck on the garbage truck. And it allows, frees me up to do a lot of administration stuff that falls by the wayside when I'm making repairs and building maintenance type stuff. Are there any questions about that?
Was that a need or a want? I didn't.
That is a need. I'm calling that a need. And now I will start the wants. In the want category this year, I'm asking for a boom mounted mowing head for our excavator. Basically what this does is it takes what is currently about a 4 to 5 person job, keeping roadsides maintained, especially on roads like Allen Street when it's open, Dillsboro Road. It takes 5 guys all day to get those mowing tasks done. This would make that a one-man job, and with another guy to direct traffic. There's also a safety component here, because he'd be protected by the excavator and the traffic director, and not just standing on the side of the road with his back turned to traffic like we have to do when we string trim and mow. It's y'all have seen them, I'm sure, but it would really streamline our mowing, and that's $6,641.33.
So this is something like the county has, that has a big head on it that mows a swath?
Yeah, essentially, Greg, it's a mowing deck that mounts to the boom on our little mini excavator. And so you can park on the road and mow down below the right of way, especially it's nice in steep spots. A lot of the roadside stuff that we maintain at Bryson Park is extremely steep and dangerous, because not only is it steep, it's also very close to the road. There's some other small benefits too. We've been seeing a lot of hypodermic syringes discarded in roadsides, and when you hit those with a weed eater, they sling directly back into the operator's face, and that's pretty dangerous. Bees, we get a lot of bee stings also while we're weed eating. So it's going to, now you're protected from that.
So it's like a hydraulic attachment for the excavator?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right.
And my last want, this will be my last request, would be a mid-year merit increase for town employees. With all the uncertainty when we were doing last year's budget, I think it was smart to delay this, but a mid-year merit increase would get us back on schedule. And I think everybody on the town staff certainly deserves that merit increase. I don't think that's up for debate at all. So, and
you're looking at that for the 2021 budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's all I'm sorry, Paige, go ahead.
Okay, let's talk about that at the end and
okay.
put that on an agenda going forward.
That's all I've got, guys. I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Chris, do you want to go next? Thank you, Jake.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. So for the police department this year, as far as needs and wants, it's going to be simple as far as the amount of things. But hopefully you guys all got the graph that I put together that explains our projected, the calls for service and actions. And just to be clear about what that number means, that is times when citizens call the police department and ask us to respond somewhere or to handle some problem. And I tell you, I'll start off by saying I wish we could rename our profession, because we're called law enforcement, but really such a small percentage of our time is actually enforcing laws. They should call us community problem solvers. That's what we do all day, solve problems in the community. But anyway, so those numbers are times that somebody has called for our assistance with some problem. It could be a traffic accident all the way to a serious crime, you know, who knows, all different things. We responded last year or this year to over 120 or about 130 some different situations, right? So a traffic accident would be one situation, and, you know, an assault would be a separate situation. So we get called for many, many things. And so another one, a part that's in that number is what is labeled on there as actions. And what that means is, for example, if an officer is we've got some issues and we think there's going to be crime in a certain area. And so a business owner has asked us to get out at night and to do a special check of their business, or if they see a suspicious person behind a building or something and they get out and talk with them and find out who they are and what they're doing, and that kind of thing, that counts as well. So just a time when there was a situation where the community needed the police and we took some sort of action. So all that's included in that. And to explain the graph a little bit, you guys saw this red line is what we projected last year. We thought that we'd hit 13,000 calls by the year 2024. Well, we hit that and surpassed it this year. And the graph really tells it. That's during COVID, which is really, really surprising for us. Interestingly enough, in that absolute spike in demand for our department, our crime actually is down. So we took less incident reports and we did less investigations than we did the year before. But we got called to many, many, many more situations. So really interesting dynamic as far as how that kind of happens. But I anticipate our next year, if I'm really just taking a guess here, but I think that number might come down a little bit next year, but it's not going to come down very much. I think you may see it come down, instead of 13.5, it may come down to 11.5 or 12.5 maybe. That's still one heck of a spike for us. And you remember me talking last year. Last year we were talking about this part of it, with this increase right here. And I was sort of in a panic because I told you I needed officers because we're getting steady busier, and it's really predictable. So I thought that we're growing at this amount every year. That's why we did the projections last year. But you see this year, it just sort of went way through the ceiling. The kinds of things that are contributing to this, just to be honest with you, there's really three things. Illegal drugs, poverty, homelessness related crimes are really going up. And we have a lot of mental illness that we deal with that sometimes manifests out as crime or police service calls. So those really are the bigger things that we deal with daily. We get lots of check welfare calls. We get lots of somebody's slumped over the steering wheel in a parking lot. We get lots of overdose calls. We get lots of those type of things that we deal with. We saved, I think it's 11 people during the year 2020 with Narcan, which we're so glad that we've got that tool to use. But just to kind of give you an idea, that's definitely up from the year before. So that's the kind of things that we're dealing with. Last year I was asking for 2 officers. We didn't get one, and I understand the money situation. I always follow that up. When people ask me about it, I always follow up. Like, look, I get to go to those meetings, and I can tell you there's no money just laying around on the table waiting to spend for all new officers. I understand that completely, but feel like we are at a real, it's a panic moment for me, and kind of high alert sort of mode. We're at 14 sworn and 1 part-time non-sworn employee here. We've been at 14 sworn for about 13 years. And I'm still sort of new kid in town. I wasn't here 13 years ago, but I imagine you guys have seen a lot of growth and change during that time. 2008 is the best I can tell. 2008 is the last time we added a position to the police department. We have an incredible increase in calls, and that's been the case since 2017. It's been increasing. And so just to give you an idea, just for us to block Main Street for an event, we don't have enough officers to block Main Street and reroute traffic on our own. We have to use sheriff's office, and you guys know during the protest events this year, we used several agencies to try to get it done. And, I'm so thankful for those folks helping us, but I'll be honest with you, it came with a price because we had some mistakes got made, and we paid a price for that just because the officer's not familiar with our town and that kind of thing. Like I said, glad to have those folks help us and appreciate them, but it's not the same as having one of our town officers in those intersections. So the events do just deplete us. And so if we have any size event at all, it's tough on us. So I feel like it's like we all want to see little projects get done in town, and there's so many things that kind of pull away from the funds that are coming in, but the town is demanding our resources at a record level. And Jake, when I'm done, Jake could probably share some numbers with you if he would about what his side of the house is seeing. And I can definitely, this graph helps you see what we're seeing. But something has got to give, because this is not sustainable. We can't keep going at this pace with the same amount of help that we have now. And like I said, it's been about 13 years, and I know none of us would want to, try to cause problems and raise the tax base for our citizens, but something's got to give, because they are asking more and more from our staff, and we don't have it to give. And so the frustrating part for me as the chief is I see situations that are happening where we could really do a better job, but because we're so busy, we're not able to really sink in and dig in with that problem. And so we end up doing the best we can with it. And so that's frustrating. But so I just don't, if we get another officer, that's what I'm asking for. My needs are real simple. 2 officers is what I'm asking for. And to be honest, probably the numbers would justify more, but I know where we're at and I understand the situation. So that's my only need I'm asking for is 2 officers. And, 1 officer is better than no officers, but I'm asking for 2. And this new person or persons would help with workload. I'll be honest with you, one place we're really suffering right now is our downtown relationship, our downtown parking ordinance that JP has retired again. And so we have that admin person, which we couldn't do it without. That was definitely a good decision to switch that position to an admin, but the police department does not have the presence downtown that we once did. And I see the cost of that all the time. And honestly, it's if we're afforded another person or two, that's something that's top priority, is trying to get a presence back downtown and try to help with traffic and try to help with the situations there. And another thing is, as we work towards trying to be a more modern police department and being the police department, the type of police department that citizens want now and what the things that they're interested in, there's a lot of general statute compliance things that we need to do, and it really pushes us to get it done. That's the kind of thing folks can help with us, again, above and beyond the regular workload. And it would really help us be more intentional and do a better job at the crucial areas. I mean, if I get somebody more that can help us with taking calls, and that also frees up in the admin side of the house. And so I can do things that's sort of like a dream of mine, where I've got somebody who can pay better attention to keeping up with use of force and our reports, and making sure that keeping an eye on our bias-based policing and all that kind of thing, to make sure that everybody's doing things the way they're supposed to do, instead of just running around. It can get crazy here sometimes. And so I'm going back and doing the best I can with that. Those kinds of things are suffering, and I don't want them to. So that's my only request as far as a need. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on to the wants? I see Dave.
Yeah, I have some questions. So I like the chart a lot, because I like having good data when we make decisions, especially if we're talking a tax increase to pay for this. So I'm wondering on this chart, so it's 911 calls and actions. And I thought from last year that it was just straight up calls, but so like I'm trying to, so there's a lot of factors that go into this chart, right? I mean, one is the rate of logs increasing, right? Like with the new CAD system, it's really easy for an officer to log an action, right? Like on my ride along, we'd pull up to a truck that was sitting, right, like a suspicious vehicle that was parked in a parking lot, and he'd log the license plate, and that's an action, right? So like part of that increase could be reporting. So I'm wondering, like, is there another statistic you can provide a chart for, like 911 calls, so we can see, because like you're saying that the community's asking more and more of the officers. So can you provide a chart and data on like the 911 calls, the calls for service, to see the rate in those? Because I thought they were down at least for part of last year. So I'm curious that trend.
I can definitely work on that for sure for you. I don't have that right here with me, but I can definitely work on it. And you're right. I would say some of this, so like proactivity by officers, like I said, let's say they're doing a special check of a business or a restaurant or something at night when there's nobody around. That stuff does go in this for sure. And so I would take, if I had to right now just give an idea, I would say if we took that out of this chart, we're ticking down about probably right in here, which is probably, I would think probably 12, maybe probably close to 12,000, maybe 11,500 or 12. So we're down right about down in here. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm pointing at, but so right about in here. And so happy to do it, and that way you can kind of see for yourself, but it's still going to be a heck of a spike for sure.
You're talking about like the 911 calls would still be in the 13,000?
Yeah. Well, when you say 911 calls, I'm thinking that you mean just a call for service where a citizen calls in and says, "Hey, can I have a police officer go to this location and help with an issue?" Is that what you mean, or do you mean actual 911, like emergency? There's a fight in progress, or something like that. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I was meaning a 911 call. I mean, I guess you're talking about like when someone calls the Sylva PD non-emergency number.
Well, you got to remember when our phone calls come in, I mean, only a few are going to, a low amount is going to be through 911. 911 is only for that there's property or life in danger right now, generally. So those numbers are going to be low. But but we get called all day long to go to just random situations like traffic accidents and take a report of this or that. Somebody's checks get stolen. They generally don't dial 911. They still call in. So just to clarify what you're looking for, if we only count, I don't know if I can even do that, but if we can only count 911 calls, it's going to be a small number, but that would not be a good way of trying to decide how busy the police department.
Right. What you keep track of calls into the Sylva PD office, so you could provide those numbers too.
Through dispatch, yeah. We don't actually track our calls that come into our building, but anything that we get sent to through dispatch it gets counted in CAD. Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, so how does something come through dispatch that doesn't come through 911? Someone calling the county sheriff office or something?
Yeah, there's a non-emergency line.
Okay, a non-emergency number. All right. Well, I mean, it'd be good to see those statistics, I think, for tracking, because I'm looking at budgets from towns around us, and I mean I'm curious sort of what's different about Sylva's trend in this, because we're at 5.4 officers per 1,000 people, and Waynesville's 3.8, Bryson City's 4.8, Franklin 4.74. So we're already higher. I'm wondering, like, why are we so overloaded? What is going on? What's unique about Sylva? Because maybe there might be other ways to address this, right? Like it'd be interesting to see maybe like what those calls are coming to you all for. Because like you said, I mean, it sounds like a lot of it is community problem solving, and not necessarily policing. So I would just like some more data really on what it is, the trend in those calls.
No problem. I've got some suggestions if you want to hear them about why I think that is. That we have, Sylva is, small population on paper, but, I think, and probably somebody else in this call could give me the exact number, but, our traffic volume is through the roof. I mean, I think our main intersection here sees the same amount of traffic as Tunnel Road. So we have a lot of people in our town and a lot of people coming through our town who don't necessarily live here. So that, I'll be honest with you, when I took the job here, I was completely fooled, because I looked at the population of Sylva and thought, okay, just a few thousand people, it's not a lot of people. But then when I get here, I learned that there's people influxing in and out of town all day. And if for a big part of this county, if folks are going to go to Walmart or go anywhere kind of to town, so to speak, then they come to Sylva, and so then they have problems while they're here, and it involves the police. But I'm happy to do some more, get you some more data. It's no problem at all.
And you also have, sorry, one last question. I saw Mary wanted to ask something. Y'all track response time also, I imagine. Is that increasing? Have y'all?
It's dispatch tracks that for us, so as they get the phone call, and then whenever our officers call on the radio and tell them they're there. But my experience is, I'm happy to look at it for you, but experience is it's not incredibly accurate, and I can't really tell you why it's not. But last year our response time was under a minute, and the average response time, which sounds great, but I'm just not sure that that's accurate. I think it takes us longer than a minute usually to get somewhere. So like I said, that's something that's not on my end of it. I don't know, but I looked at that last year, and that's why I didn't bring it up last year, because I thought I just fairly accurate. We don't get there. Sometimes we do, but definitely not all the time.
For answering my questions.
Thank you.
My
Mary,
question,
do you have a question?
yeah, just a small one. My question was, when you get a new officer, does that mean another vehicle is necessary?
That's a good question. I think we can, if we get one officer, I think we're going to be, well, I should probably defer to Paige on that with our vehicle replacement schedule. We probably wouldn't, my opinion is we probably wouldn't need to buy a new vehicle immediately. Like at the same time, we probably could do okay, but eventually, yeah, that officer's going to probably need a vehicle. Paige,
we could look at our schedule and see, I'm not sure what we're supposed to surplus in 21-22, but if we could see if the maintenance cost on a vehicle that we're supposed to surplus is lower than if we can limp along until we can afford to get another one, and maybe wait for the next year we just replace one, that we could do two instead. That would depend on the condition of the vehicles of our fleet.
Barbara, I see your hand, but I think Ben had a question before.
Oh yeah, it was just kind of along the lines of what David was talking about. You know, the breakdown of the calls, because you know, there's I mean, for instance, running back and forth to the magistrate, like those are for an IVC. You know, y'all get called to that. You know, do those calls count as well? And those are time consuming as well, I'll bet.
Yeah, so like for an example, a trip to the magistrate's office would not be included in that, just for to go there and get something. If it's for an IVC, it would, because we have to take those papers from the magistrate's office, take it to the hospital, and do the service on those or whatever. So that would definitely be an action. Actually, that would probably go into a call for service, because the magistrate would be requesting us to get that paperwork and get it served. And so, but the thing about these numbers are, and it's something I want you guys to think about, is you got to remember. So if the protests that we had this year, if you can try to think about how many hours went into that, those aren't reflected in these numbers at all. That's not that we didn't do any CAD entries at all for those events. That was just what was happening that day. There was no crime occurred, you know. So that, and if it was accounted for, it would be one number. It would be one digit. It wouldn't be, and it's something that took us, you know, we spent weeks and weeks preparing, and then actually having officers working. So there's a lot of things that we do that don't go into these numbers. So the numbers are a good thing to look at. I think it's a good idea for sure to take a look at them. But just remember, there's some things we do that take sometimes days and weeks, and they're not represented in there at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like another good reason to get a more extensive breakdown, you know, of everything. And you know, because you know, there are times where we might identify something that is better addressed by someone other than cops. Clearly, you know that too. There are like tons of things, you know, if someone gets locked out of their house, you know, you don't need cops, but you guys get called because there's nobody else to show up.
Let me get Barbara's question.
Not so much a question, it's just an opinion. I think I agree with Chief about the influx of traffic here and how busy 107 is and how many speeders there are, and the college, all the college students, all the other calls they get. And I personally think they need 2 more officers, because they need to be able to spread this out and be able to protect our town, because we've had them in our neighborhood several times. I appreciate them very much. We've had another meth lab in our town, in our neighborhood, right across the street. And I think they are really pressed to be able to take care of our town. And many of them work days off. They work, you know, I don't know when they ever get a vacation, because that makes them even shorter staffed. And I personally think they deserve to have 2 officers.
I could say something right there. Thank you, Barbara, for saying that. But that's one area that's a little bit, I'm just sort of just telling you kind of my feelings on it. Drug investigations, I spent a good chunk of my career doing drug investigations. And so it's something that I'm really proficient at. And for us, it's really frustrating, because I don't feel, there are lots of things I'd like to be doing as far as drug enforcement in the town and actually working with addicts and that kind of thing. But like I say, we don't have a whole lot of people here, and everybody here is busy. So it's just that for us, sometimes it's like, wow, we could really be doing even I think we're doing a good job in all areas, but I think we could really do a better job with that. Or if we could spend some time here, we could probably free up a lot of problems over here. And we try to do that. And I'll be honest with you, since coming here, I have put a lot of effort in, because manpower is the same. So I put a lot of effort in improving process. And so things that used to take officers 45 minutes or an hour to do, we've slimmed it down where it only takes them 15 or 20 minutes to try to get it done. And we're still working in that area, but we use grants to buy some technology and some equipment that's really sort of helped streamline our work productivity. And that does help, but it's not the answer to everything. So.
Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Hatton, for all this information. Could you elaborate a little bit? I mean, this is sort of part of a larger conversation that is happening in the country right now about policing. Can you elaborate a little bit about how these new officers maybe would be trained in a different way than they were before in terms of, 21st century evolution of the police department? And I really like your comment about how you want it to move, or you think it should be called community problem solvers and not police. And I fully support that kind of thinking. So I was just wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about how, moving forward and where you've been versus that.
Yeah, Greg, I'm happy to. So for starters, I wish maybe one day I'll have the resources to do it, but I would love to do some research on how much time we actually spend enforcing laws. I'll tell you now, it's a really, really small percentage of time. We spend our time doing lots of other things, but so the training of new officers will be really similar to the training of our officers now. Because right now we're going through a process of our training for a police officer is not something that just happens and then it's over. We have mandatory training we have to do every year. We're always going to training. We're always trying to increase people's, they're kind of making their tool, giving them more and more tools to do their jobs. And so examples, we've taken classes this year. Our department is taking classes on decision-making for law enforcement, de-escalation tactics, bias-based training, those kinds of things. And then we're working on trying to go to the CIT program, crisis intervention training, but it's held up because of COVID, because there's a lot of one-on-one and facility visits and that kind of thing with that training. So we're kind of stuck on that one. But that was one of the first things I did here was try to get that scheduled. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is it's never ending for us. And so there's a basic training block of things that officers need to have. And we've got to get that done first because that's what they need to do their jobs, just routine in and out. But as soon as we get that basic block done, then we're able to go into these sort of specialty situations. So, and when I say that basic block, I mean, like, for example, if somebody's drinking and driving and we arrest them, we can't just say they're impaired. We actually have to run an instrument that tests their breath, and there's a week-long school you have to go to learn how to run the instrument and make sure that you're doing it right and that kind of thing. You have to be certified in a lot of different things. That's the kind of things I'm talking about. That's part of it. Like a police officer, if you pull over an officer, or if you pull over somebody and they're drinking and driving, you have to have that tool in order to process that whole crime. So if not, then you're going to be using other officers and taking them away from what they're doing to do it. So once that, like radar is another good example. Speed enforcement is something that we need our police officers to do, and so they need to have that radar certification. So as soon as that base block is done, then we can start doing things like what really more like what you're thinking about, and get them the more modern topics that everybody's really interested in. And so we're doing it now is the answer. So those new officers that come in, they'll be trained like we are initially, and then that honestly through the basic BLET program, I don't know how all that's changed, but for us, everybody's going to go through these topics that I just listed. And so I don't know if that answers your question or not. I hope it does.
Yeah, I'm just sort of talking about modern issues of gender bias and race bias training, and it sounds like that you're taking those issues to heart. So, the drug problem that we have here is not unique to us, and that seems like, drugs were an issue in the 80s, but the drugs now, are killing people. So it seems like with the evolution of a police department, the more training that we could get is the better. And I don't know, I would love to see more community presence with police not in uniform, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree with you. And like I said before, there's several areas where COVID has really put us in a bind this year as far as community relations, because I'm telling the officers, don't be in people's space if you don't need to be, because you can make them sick, they can make you sick. So but just in talking in general, these types of training things, these types of training topics that you're talking about, we're doing that now, and there'll be more of it. But I agree with you.
It's a larger trend
Yes.
and a larger conversation in law enforcement.
Absolutely.
Which I'm not proficient in those, that stuff. So, I would like to hear a little bit more about just law enforcement in general and the general attitude that that you guys have, how we're moving forward into the 21st century and how we're helping with the community instead of policing the community.
Yeah, you're welcome to my job. That's what I'm doing every day, is thinking about those kinds of things. And the one thing about, you hear about police reform and those things, the problem is there's no guidebook. We don't know what it looks like. There are some good departments out there doing some really good things, but what works in one community may not work as well in another community. And so that's honestly, that's my job, is to sit and look at our community and say, okay, what would work and what wouldn't work.
Well, I really appreciate your proactive approach to everything.
Thank you. Thank you. We just want to give good service to our folks. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah, but that's definitely in our minds. We're definitely doing it, those kinds of things. But I'm just being real with you when I tell you that there are many, many times that we do not have the opportunity to be as present in the community as we used to be because we're busier now, if that makes sense. So.
Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, like, this is like it's a whole separate discussion. I feel like, the police department is like such a gigantic part of our budget for our town. And I feel like we should be having like a whole session on just talking about, policing and the police department and everything. This comes up in our budget discussion, but it's, just throwing this out here. I'm, just brainstorming, but I feel like we need, it would be helpful to have this kind of other discussion. It's coming up, it's bubbling up a little bit in our budget discussion, whether or not we need another officer, but I think it's something that would be great to have, like at a retreat or something. But yeah, just wanted to kind of throw that out there, because, it's not all about, there's, I don't know. Yeah, I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you for bringing that up, because we definitely do need to have a retreat at some point. I think the budget right now is what's forefront, but excuse me, I do know the governor has had a task force, and the state will be sending down some maybe new guidelines and all. And to me, some of the new training and everything that officers are going to be required to take is actually going to take officers off of the street for times getting their training. So additional officers may be needed in police departments like ours just to cover what's being covered now, because I think there's going to be a lot of classes and things to come up in this next year.
Yeah, Mayor, for us here at Sylva PD, if somebody is taking a vacation day, or if they're in a training course for 2 or 3 days, or for whatever reason they're not able to be here and on their shift, one of our other officers is working on their day off to cover those 12 hours. So that is taxing for us, because I want them to go to training. And I'm just going to be blunt. The state's training is okay, but there's better training out there than not always, but there's definitely better places to get training. But that better training costs money. and it's just what it is. It's the way the world works. And so I feel like right now in police training, there's really a transition into online training, which I'm really happy about, because that generally means the cost of that training go down. And it's situations where my officers can be on duty and they've got a 2 or 3 hour training course, and during the course of their shifts, they can just go back to it and watch it. And so they're able to be here and go to training, but that's a new development before that. So yeah, it's, for us, it is taxing. If somebody takes a week off here to take their vacation for the year or whatever, I mean, somebody's got to work those days off. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Just
Paige, we need to move on to another department.
Chief, what are, besides the additional officers, what are your other needs and wants this year?
That's the only needs. And the wants, I don't have any wants either. I know Jake's needing to ask for quite a few things this year, which is great, but Harris, I definitely agree with that. We've got to have some way of getting around up there. We had, just real quick story, we had a situation where we had some overdue hikers on a freezing. It was a night when temperatures were freezing. It was about probably 5:30. It was starting to get dark whenever folks realized they were overdue. And it was some folks that had some small children. And I just got to tell you, this feeling in my stomach was not good to know that it's almost dark. It's going to freeze tonight. I got folks lost up in here, no idea where they are. It was a sort of a helpless feeling, if you can imagine. Like I'm starting to start this operation now, and temperatures are going to get lower and lower. And so there's a little bit of a panic feeling. I thought, I don't even have a way to really get around up in there. Like I say, we've used Jake's guys' trucks, and it did not go smoothly at all. Trying to get to some of those places. So thank goodness we got there to start looking for these folks, and they came out. So that was wonderful. But we're going to have situations where folks actually get lost up there. So.
Paige, I have some numbers I'd like to share with the board to go back to the sanitation, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
When speaking to the need for the part-time sanitation employee, in 2019, my sanitation department picked up 1,056 tons of municipal solid waste. In 2020, now these are calendar years, not fiscal years, because the calendar year lines up a lot better with the pandemic than the fiscal year does. In 2020, we picked up 1,293.5 tons of municipal solid waste. That's a 237.5 ton increase in 1 year. To put that into perspective, there aren't any additional people picking that garbage up. That's standard crew. That's almost an additional 500,000 pounds of solid waste produced while people are staying home and in quarantine. While I don't expect it to trend that way forever, it's worth noting that that's what we've been up against in that department for the last year. And I meant to include that in the original presentation. I apologize for having to backtrack. That's all.
Okay. I don't know of any administrative needs or wants that we need to add to this, but please interrupt me, Lynn and Amanda, if you know of any. Hearing none, let's move on to the board's needs and wants to add to this list.
Just to sort of speed up the process, do you have our list from last year?
I can rattle off some of the things that you typically put on it, but it's on my computer, but I can't share the screen and do that.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and start with one. I'm going to put it more as a want, I guess. I'm torn between it being a need and a want, but just the public restroom idea that we've spoke about for Main Street. I feel like with us changing the road structure of Spring Street, it gives us an opportunity to develop that 50-foot section of road that's no longer used. And I know that that's a big item that would cost a lot of money. And I don't know, this is the year that we can do it. So I'm going to put it more as a want, I guess. And it may even be just the want to explore the feasibility of it and what the cost would be, and maybe even just begin that conversation.
So you're talking about just like design fees or architect's fees to come up with a plan for that space?
And is it even feasible? Is it something that we ought to even put much thought into? I just see it as a space that has a better utilization, and it's more central in downtown Sylva. So I guess I can explore the option. What's that?
I'm just wondering, Paige, who would we talk to about something like that, a project like that, starting up a project like that? I mean, it's a DOT road, right?
Spring Street isn't, I don't think.
The town street.
So we could just potentially go to Odell's office and tell him to look at this space and draw us a little drawing?
That would be a component of it. Working with TWASA on the feasibility of the water and sewer, what a public restroom cost in other towns, what size has worked well, that type of thing.
Are we still allowing use of the PD for the bathroom? Wasn't that part of the part-time clerk position, was making that available as a public restroom? Not to like say it's either or, like we can't still do another public restroom, but I'm just wondering if that's still in practice.
Would you like for me to speak on that?
Yes, please.
So yes, during non-COVID times, the front lobby was open and available to people. Right now, the doors are locked, and with a sign of how to get in touch with us. But yeah, normally yes.
Okay, but it's still an option in the future then, for at least some relief for people.
The pun intended. Sorry.
That's right. Thank you. Someone noticed.
I just wanted to add in too. Yeah, I was just downtown the other day, and I was in a shop, and someone came in and was asking for public restrooms, and they're like, "Oh, well, you can go over to Lazy Hiker or whatever." But yeah, I mean, just another reminder that it's something we like to have folks on our streets walking up and down Main Street, and I think that's just it's a service. It's something that the town should really provide. Bridge Park is there, but it's pretty far away. The police department's at one end of town, not really the center of kind of shopping areas, not really the center of town. So yeah, I think it's definitely something to be looked into.
So do you want to say, Mary, like a feasibility study for a public restroom downtown, and put maybe, I don't know, 5-7K next to it? I mean, I don't know what a feasibility would cost, but I mean, to have a architect kind of look into what would go into that, or a location even.
Right.
I don't know. That sounds like
the feasibility of it. I think more than ever in the years I've been here, we actually have a location that we could consider now, which is a first. So I'd like to explore that. And I do think that it could cut down on cost with events. That's something that's always an event line item, is porta potties. So having our own maybe could cut down over time. It's a huge expense though, I realize that. So I don't know if we have the money or not, but a feasibility study could at least give us an amount.
And just to be clear, there's no public restrooms in the Equinox drawing for the other side of Bridge Park?
I think so.
No, there are not.
There isn't.
I don't recall seeing. So that seems like a good transition for me to throw in the Equinox plan. So I know last year, what did we budget? 16,000?
13,000.
13,000 for getting that plan. And I guess obviously we didn't get a plan. We had other things that came up. So would that 16 roll back into this budget, I guess is my question, or does that need to be discussed again and added back? Do we still need that?
It's still in the budget, and we're hoping to complete it by June 30th. We just have had other things come up, and a landslide has taken a lot of public works in Jake's time.
Yeah, David. Oh, sorry. Per my conversation with Equinox just earlier this week, that will all be completed by the end of June for this fiscal year, for everything that we discussed last year. It's still on track. It's just a little behind what it would have been due to the slide.
Okay, so I guess since we're not going to get that until June, we can't really budget for implementation of that plan quite yet. And we don't know what sort of grant opportunities might be available. So we just kind of wait and see how to proceed when we get that plan.
Yes.
But we could definitely, I don't see anything coming up, but we could definitely do a amendment for that fund, couldn't we?
Right, and that would most likely be paid out of Fisher Creek anyways.
Yeah.
Right. So there'd be no real need to put it into the general budget then.
Correct.
At this point. I have a question. So another, just thinking back on what we budgeted for last year and seeing if they're still going to be implemented. The lights on Mill Street, I remember we had budgeted 5,000 for that, I believe. Is that still going to finish this year, or is that something we need to roll into next budget?
But we have a contract for that. That's going to start just as soon as the weather warms up just a little bit. So that will be in 2021 also.
Okay, good.
We're taking turns, or should I go next?
Go ahead, Greg.
Well, seeing as how we're going to get a new bridge coming from Dillsboro, I would like for us to do another iteration of the Sylva entry sign this year. Jake, you could probably give us some pretty hard numbers on what that did cost. I think it was somewhere around $5,000.
Yeah, between 5 and 7. I think it was 5, right at 5. I can't rattle it off the top of my head, but I think it was right around 5, and I can find that out for you.
We've got
it was 7,000.
Was it 7? Okay.
A couple of logistics problems. I guess the CNC machine that cut that sign is not available anymore. Is that right?
As far, to the best of my knowledge, the machine is still available. The operator, Mr. Jones, that was kind of the ramrod of that at the high school, has left. I don't know definitively that it's no longer an option. But if we don't get that service donated, then it's certainly considerably more expensive to pay somebody to do that than it was for the high school lab class to do that. So that's just something I would have to investigate.
I would say maybe another $1,000 for the technician to cut the thing out that wasn't part of the expense of the last one.
Right. Yeah, I'd say $1,000 would be a good estimation.
So an $8,000 entryway sign from Dillsboro is my.
Greg, I'll add that we funded the original sign coming there at the Justice Center. That was the county municipal grant. We've already received those funds for the new sidewalk this year, but it could be worth exploring using the $5,000 from that grant in future years, if that's what y'all would like to do.
I just think it's a perfect impression coming off the highway. Perfect first impression. I love that sign. So great.
Well, thank you.
The one that's in Dillsboro is the opposite of that.
So my biggest concern here with this budget is obviously this landslide. So, clearly we're not having our RFP until we get this report finished, and that's probably not going to coincide so well with our budget, getting quotes from contractors. So what do we do at this point to plan for that?
I think we've got to look at that separate from the budget that we're building. I mean, obviously we need to know going into this budget that we have to pay for this landslide and fixing it, or however we move forward from it. But I think that we're going to be talking cost in the current budget prior to June 30th. And I certainly hope working on it before then.
Okay, then. So my next question would be for after the landslide, improvements to Bryson Park. Is that something that it's time to, like, I imagine this, obviously we're not going to make any improvements to the park until we get the land stable around it. So are we pulling the gun by budgeting for that in the 21-22 fiscal year? Because it's probably not realistic that other work gets complete till then, but maybe we should start looking for grants now. I would put improvements to Bryson Park in there, at least as a grant opportunity to be looking for this year. And I don't know what dollar amount I would put that at. 15K.
Can I say something to that, David? I recently was spending some time at the Jackson County Rec Department in Cullowhee's playground area. And, you know, I have 2 small children and they love that setup. So we drive to Cullowhee to enjoy that setup. Is there any way we could just ask the rec center about their equipment and help get a price or a budget line item of what that kind of equipment cost?
Yes, we can get a price on equipment and add that later, or report back on that at the next work session.
Can we place that?
Sorry, Mary, you froze.
Can you say again, Mary?
Can we place it as a need? The playground equipment at Bryson Park as a need?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And guys, but I gotta throw it out there that you know, that old school playground equipment that's there is actually pretty cool. It looks old and stuff, but I mean, it's like, you know, adventure. It's great for kids to get out there, and it's really good for them. So that's kind of just throwing it out.
Just maybe working on the rest.
Paige and Jake, I have a question. Say we get our feasibility studies, we get everything, and we send out the RFPs and get a contractor for Allen Street. What is the timeline you see for that? Will it be finished during this coming up budget year? Everything to be able to then fix Bryson Park?
I think that depends on the option that we select.
Okay.
Yeah, if a repair is what we decide to move forward with after accumulating all the data, it isn't. We'll kind of be at the mercy of the schedule of the bid winner when they can start, the weather, that sort of thing. I think it's entirely infeasible to think that that can be completed by the end of this current fiscal year, but not at all unfeasible to think that it would be by the end of 21-22.
I'm just sort of leery of those projects after the way current road projects have been pushed around. So, but if we put money down and decide on something, we still can transfer that to the next year. Is that right, Paige? If we decide on, say, improvements to Bryson Park, and we can't start on that for this coming fiscal year, would it go to the next year?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, I thought you heard me.
I mean, also we could just say do a transfer from fund balance to capital reserve for future improvements to Bryson Park and build that into this budget, right? Mm-hmm. And that way it doesn't have to be completed this year, and it can be added to next year if we don't get to it this year and not take a big hit at one time. So, I mean, that's another option.
I would like to add what we have on every year, our improvements to the Bridge Park area, more green spaces. I've liked that we've had extra picnic tables down in that area that people have enjoyed during the pandemic. I don't remember what price tag we put on it before, but I know that the Equinox project would be going on, but it would be nice to add on to what they do.
Would this be the right time for us to have a conversation about the Black Rock Creek track? And do we need to budget any money to the betterment of it?
Can I add on before we go there? If we're going to go there, can I just add? I have a small add. Is it okay? Yeah. So just and Jake, we talked a little bit about you know, those things in the road. I forget what we're calling on, those little signs for the crosswalks that, you know, permanently attach in the ground and kind of spring back and forth. We talked about that, and I don't know, is that something we need to budget for, or is that something that can come just out of Public Works budget now? Because I'm just concerned about, I mean, I'm excited how that Mill and Main area of town is really starting to develop with the new restaurants, and there's a lot of foot traffic down there. And those signs, the little sandwich board signs are fine, and or the pylons, whatever, but you know, they get blown over by the wind. And I really want something more permanent down there for the crosswalks, just to keep slowing people down and to keep making it safe for folks walking around.
Yeah, Ben, we can do that out of the regular operating budget for the street department.
Great, thanks.
Are there others?
I've been making a list of things that have been included in the past. An additional amount to maintain the paving schedule. If you want any of these added, just stop me. Repairing the wall behind Town Hall, paving the parking lot between Town Hall and the pool, decorative street lights on Mill Street.
Yes.
But that's happening.
Oh, okay, yeah, right, sorry.
That should.
Landscaping downtown. Floodlight display for mural. Sidewalks on Mill Street.
The floodlight got done.
Okay.
Not by us.
Sorry, what was
sidewalks on Savannah Drive?
Sorry, the sidewalks on Mill Street, what was that about?
That was one that's been brought up in the past.
But like, what are we talking about?
Where they're missing, kind of behind Landis Street. There's a missing section near Nantahala Brewing.
Yes, that was one we've had on there several times to fix that, so people have a place to walk instead of trying to get on the railroad track. There's no sidewalk between Grindstaff and Keener.
Oh yeah, is that even doable? That seems like a tough.
Well, there used to be one there. Now we'd have to think of something like, I don't know, a wooden sidewalk with rails or something different but neat.
Mm-hmm. It'd be nice to have something that goes from Nantahala to that weird little stairway thing down there. That would be, because I use that, and then avoids it avoids the railroad tracks. But
that's such an odd little place right there.
It is, but I feel like there's a crosswalk there. Okay, with Nantahala being there, and like it's becoming, because it really connects to the crosswalk now in front of Nantahala. I feel like it's going to start to get used a little bit more. And I don't have any solutions in mind, but and it seems like that little stairway thing too could also be just rehabbed a little bit, make it a little bit safer, the railing and stuff. But yeah, I don't know where that would go, but there's no ways about it. I mean, that's a great way to get folks kind of downtown from like the Fountain area, or if they're staying in the motel there, they can cross and go down there and get to Nantahala, and they can get to downtown, they can get to the market. It's just another little connection and avoids a busy intersection there at Grindstaff. But I feel like someone would have to like, there's more, it feels like maybe there's does that fall into a little bit of a design feasibility kind of thing too? Do we throw some money out there for someone to brainstorm, you know, like tearing up the railroad and making it a rails to trails to Dillsboro would be awesome too, but I'm not going to put that on the budget. But,
I can just about assure you that tearing up the railroad won't happen.
It seems like that should sort of be left on like the unofficial path. Like there's so many different factors right there that could potentially just hit us right in the face. Like just like repainting the crosswalks is a difficult thing, you know, and trying to, you know, navigate the, you know what I mean? Like it's a can of worms, I guess.
I know it is. It's, yeah.
Could we make that sidewalk like a feasibility study or a design? Maybe somebody would like to come up with a neat design for that. I don't know how you do that, but not to implement it this year, but at least get an idea of how we could fix it.
Yeah, I feel like that's what we need. We need someone who knows how to do this stuff, kind of look at it.
Right-of-way issues are going to be a nightmare. Sandwiched between, because inside of like a 40 feet stretch, you have DOT right-of-way, town property on the sidewalk, railroad right-of-way, and then private property right there. So just know that.
But Jake, it used to be there.
Mm-hmm.
The sidewalk was there at one time.
Back to Mary's topic, trails at Pinnacle Park, Black Rock Creek. I know we're waiting on a report from Sylva, so I guess we don't have an idea of price of that, and we've had they've said that they could provide us a plan at no cost. So what's the budgeting steps for that project? And Ben, you know more about that than I do.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're really talking about RTP grants funding the whole thing. And, you know, trail maintenance being done by Sylva as well, because they do that now at the trails around. They have, you know, volunteer trail days and stuff. So they're, so that is really not looking, I mean, their goal is not to have the town pony up any money. But the one thing that did come up, and we're going to look at it a little bit, is the Fisher Creek Trailhead parking lot. That is something that I think is going to grow even if nothing is done, you know, there, but especially if we put more trails in, because the trails that are going to be at the lower part, hey, could you tone it down just a little bit, please? Thanks. The trails that are going to be down there are going to be the multi-use, really the easy multi-use trails. So hiking, people taking their dogs out, going running. So there's going to be a lot more folks in that parking lot. And so even now, the cars will start to spill out of the parking lot and they start to park on the road. So at some point in time, we're going to have to kind of just, you know, think about parking solutions, whether it's making it bigger. You know, the other thing too is talking about public restrooms. You know, it's probably not a bad idea if that's going to get used on a regular basis, not to build something fancy, but to have, you know, like a porta potty there or something. And so that's something to kind of throw out there. But as far as the trails themselves go, there's not going to be any cost to the town is the current plan.
And, you know, that letter to Jake and Paige from the Mainspring, I don't know if it was the Mainspring director, I can't remember who it was, but that talked about trail maintenance up there. One of the things they mentioned was purchasing access along the Paris Branch entrance. I don't know what that sort of thing would cost, but that was a solution that person brought up to the parking shortage at Fisher Creek also, that I thought was pretty good, because I know we do, you know, I mean, there's access to public land up there, but it's a private road, which is a complicated, legal issue, but I'm glad they brought that up and suggested that. And I don't know what that process would look like, Paige, for securing public access to that part of the park, but that does get you off of the roads and trails that letter also cited as being a big problem that needed to be addressed. That letter from the Mainspring guy, I mean, that's a whole other budget discussion right there. There's a lot in that.
Yes, I think starting a conversation with the homeowners association there would be the first step.
So maybe that's something we plan on doing for this year, but nothing really to budget for that. But definitely part of that whole, increasing use and renovating Pinnacle and Black Rock and maintaining it. Definitely part of that discussion.
This is just a question, but would all of that property touch Pinnacle Park? Would it be something that maybe we could get some help with the conservation trust fund? Or it would be strange for us to have one little piece of property that was not conserved.
What are you talking about?
If we were to purchase Paris Branch access.
Well, no, we have access up there. I mean, Paris Branch has a road that goes to the park, to the upper east corner of the park. So, I mean, it wouldn't be anything to buy. The thing that they had mentioned was like purchasing, I mean, I guess just having official right-of-way use of a private road for a public use of a private road, essentially, I think is the complicated problem there.
Gotcha.
Right. There's plenty of room for a parking lot up there at the Paris Branch trailhead. It's just that the ingress, egress, right away, easement, whatever you'd want to call it, that's the issue. It also takes a lot longer to get to that trailhead than it does the Fisher Creek trailhead. So I'm sure some folks would use it, but it still isn't going to get the traffic that the Fisher Creek trailhead would get.
I hate starting at the bottom.
I'd
use it.
Downhill.
Anything else? Paige, where do we go from here?
Okay, so I think, all right, on the police office, when we're talking about voting, you have 24 votes, or 24 dots is what you typically have. So this time I want you to cast votes. After we adjourn, I'm going to email this list to you if there's nothing else to add. But on the police officer, what I think we need to do here is vote for 2 if you want to, but if you vote for 2, I'm going to count that as supporting 1 additional one. I mean, it'll count as 2, but what I'm imagining happening here is some people are going to vote more for 2, but not vote for 1. And if you vote for 2, it means that you are supporting 2, but that you're also supporting 1. But if you only support 1, just vote for supporting 1. Does that make sense?
Yes. Can you add to the cost of the 2 additional police officers a car? It sounds like it's necessary to purchase an additional car with 2 officers, but not with 1. I mean, we got to capture that full cost here.
Yes. Okay.
And that's not a one-time. That's a yearly. That's a yearly increase for those. Well, the car is a one-time, but the police officer, it's just like that's 1 additional officer is $59,000 per year every year.
I'm gonna put in, Amanda and Chris, do you think the cost of a car at $40,000 fully equipped?
40. I do about probably 44, 45. That's if you want to do the total package of it.
Okay.
But yeah, actually, I guess keep the 118 separate. Like say 118 annually plus, you know, because that cost of the car, right? Like Ben said, is only the first year. It's not the recurring cost of two
Yeah,
additional.
Paige, you okay if I speak on this just a second?
Yes.
So yeah, that's one thing I was kind of concerned about is because we may have some board members who say, gosh, 2 is too much, but I would support 1. And so that's, yeah, I'm glad you addressed that because that's, I wouldn't want somebody to say, well, I don't support 2, so I'm not voting for it at all. You know, I like that we're differentiating that.
Is there anything else on here that we need to add or clarify for voting?
Barbara?
I still don't understand what you're saying about voting for 2 officers.
Okay, so if you support 2 officers and you want to give that 10 of your 24 votes, I'm going to count that as 10 votes also for supporting 1 officer. If you only support 1 officer and you want to give it 5 votes, then that's just going to count for 5 votes for 1 officer, but none for 2 officers. Because I'm assuming that if you're voting for having 2 additional officers, you would also support the idea of having 1 additional officer.
Thank you.
Is that just salary or does that include all of the taxes and everything?
That should include the taxes and everything.
Paige, can I clarify something on the Allen Street?
Yes.
Please. Okay, so the money talking about rolling over, what's going to happen is that will be put in a capital project fund because it will be going through more than 1 year. The reason I did not put that in the capital reserve fund is the way it states it, it's more like for capital equipment. And so if we had tried to take it out of there once it went in, unless it was the whole thing was amended, the wording, I don't think we could have done that. I mean, the board could have done it, but we would have had to change the wording. So once we know what kind of money we're talking about, it will actually be put in the capital reserve fund. And with that, it's not based on the physical year, it's based on the project year. So that's why I was kind of waiting on that till we know kind of what kind of money we're looking at.
Thank you. Yes. Good clarification. Anything else that we need to add to the needs and wants?
Can you clarify on Bryson Park, is that equipment or is that, it's going to have work done on it anyhow, the way it is right now, graded or whatever's going to happen to get that.
Let's talk about that or let's vote on that one as improvements to the actual park and not getting it fixed, because I'm thinking of like fixing the driveway from the slide as a maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm kind of wondering why we're even talking about that at all. I mean, you can't access that park now. You can't, it's not open at all. It's underneath a landslide that is not, you know, it's a huge question as to whether how much, I don't know why we're.
It's the same reason we're talking about the sidewalks on 107 years before those things we're going to actually spend that money, right? It's like we can start budgeting for it now. We can start looking for grants now, because we know that when that slide is fixed, when we're done dealing with that slide, that we're going to have to put money towards it, and we're going to wish we had started sooner, right?
Okay, so this is a contingency line for future renovations.
Right. If we go ahead and budget, say we put $5K in there now and we don't have the slide fixed a year from now, that's something that rolls over to the next budget cycle and we can add to it if we wanted to. As far as like putting a price figure on it for right now, it's kind of tough, right? Because one of our options is grant funding for those, and Paige, it sounds like she's going to reach out to the rec department or at least get some quotes for what that sort of equipment would cost to fill in later, right?
Right. And I don't think we need to have lots of things. I mean, we need to keep down, we need to roll over very little every year. Because we need to be budgeting for what we're going to use, because doing that messes with our available fund balance. But when we know that we've got something like 107 coming up that's going to cost several $100,000 for sidewalks, we need to be planning for that.
So what is the dollar amount that we're asking for improvements that may happen?
We don't know yet. I'm going to talk to the rec department and and Jake and I will price some playground equipment and get back to you at a future budget work session.
But it's possible that like all this is a moot point. Like the park is at this point inaccessible.
So you can either put votes on it or you can put them somewhere else.
Okay, but it's not part of the scope of the work that we're going to be doing on Allen Street.
Correct.
Greg, I just want to clarify, I brought it up because there's community members interested in that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm interested in it too. You know, of course, that is it's a beautiful little park. It's a little pocket park and I would love to do it. I just, you know,
yeah, maybe
for the hidden cost. Sorry?
It very well may be delayed, but I just want to have it on our radar.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Paige, real quick, will you add, you know, Paris branch access for Pinnacle, but you know, just the parking area at Fisher Creek for Pinnacle. I don't know if that's going to be a separate thing. I just want to make sure that gets on there because that's definitely something that I feel is going to need to get addressed. You know, there's talk. Peter Tate was saying, hey, maybe we can, you know, throw that in with the whole project and, you know, do that grant funded as well. But it's going to be something we're going to have to address for sure.
Okay. Added an expanded parking area at Pinnacle Park. Anything else?
So the stuff from last year, I mean, are we just, now, is it going to go away? I mean, I feel like we should have this list.
I do have this list.
Okay. And I don't want to forget things because there's some great ideas on there and, you know.
Yes, I've got this list.
Some of the items are perennial. Not in here.
What, Greg?
They have been perennial since I've been on the board.
Okay, so after this meeting adjourns, I'm going to email you this list. You've got 24 votes. Please assign the number of votes to each item that you want. And you can either email it back to me, or if you want it to be confidential, you can print out your list and leave it in the Dropbox at Town Hall.
What's your time for wanting those back?
Monday by 5. And if I don't have them if I don't have 6 of these back, I'm going to keep reminding you until I get 6 back. Okay, so then the other thing we were going to talk about was the mid-year merit increase that Jake brought up. So last year during the budget talks, we didn't know where we were going to be with sales tax. So we said that we would we didn't do a merit increase, but we did do a cost of living adjustment, that we would talk about this at a later time. I just want to know if you all the county did a $1,000 bonus for employees. The cost of that would be almost $29,000. The cost of a mid-year 2.5% merit increase would be $17,533.33. If you want to put this on a future agenda, if you think it has the support to go anywhere, we can do that. But I didn't want to put that in as a budget discussion today because we're looking at the 21-22 budget. But if you want that added on a future agenda, please let me know.
Would this money be coming from the CARES Act money?
No, because the CARES Act money has been spent.
It has my support to be on our next agenda. And to be clear, so like the two options you gave, the $29,000 for the $1,000 bonus, that's a one-time cost. The $17,533, that's a permanent adjustment to salary costs, annual.
Well, it would actually be a bigger adjustment for next year if you did it.
If we did it
put in for the entire year and not just for 6 months. But the benefit of doing the merit is that keeps us in line with our pay plan.
Yes, right. So yeah, I mean,
our goal overall is to look at doing between 2.5% and 5% for salaries and merit each year so that we don't get behind on our pay plan like we did in 2017 and have to appropriate a large chunk to catch.
The 1K bonus is very tempting, but the merit increase is actually, I mean, in my opinion, it's better because it's a permanent adjustment to someone's salary, but we can have those discussions. So yes, I would say that's an agenda item for next meeting.
I would agree.
Is there a reason we can't decide today if people feel that way?
Because we don't take action in work sessions.
Okay.
Is there another person that wants that on a future agenda?
Yeah, sure.
I do.
Okay. Ben, was there something else you wanted to talk about with vaccines?
Yeah, definitely. So clearly we want to encourage all town employees to get vaccinated when vaccines are available. I can tell you from getting experience of folks that I've worked with that have gotten their vaccines or second dose of vaccine. And the other day I got my first dose, and seeing as I already had COVID, I had a rip-roaring immune response, so I would have been hard pressed to go to work the next day. I mean, you will be fine. It's encouraging to see a good immune response, but you feel awful, and I don't think that folks should be, having to take their own, well, they're going to need an extra day of sick time for this. This is like a specific thing. So I would propose that we give all the employees an extra day of sick leave this year, just for this kind of for the vaccine. So that does two things. It encourages folks to get the vaccine, but also covers them. They don't have to take an extra sick day, because this is something we're really almost, I don't want to say we're mandating, but we're, really highly encouraging people to get it. So they would get an extra sick day if they get the vaccine. They don't necessarily have to use it. Some folks are just fine and they go in, but if someone really is not feeling well, then they should not have to go to work.
Any more discussion on that?
Yes, Linda.
Yes, Barbara.
Ben, are you saying on the first dose that you got that happened?
Well, yeah, on my first dose, most people are not having a problem with their first dose. The reason my first dose was bad is because I already had antibodies because I had COVID in the past. So it was just, it fired up my immune system again. So
okay, because I've been I've been hearing that second doses have really bothered a lot of people.
And so this is like, for me, it was kind of like getting a second dose, even though I'm still going to get a second dose, and hopefully it's not going to be as bad. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those, you just really feel awful. But that's what we're hearing. It's definitely the second dose. That's
so it's best to be prepared and think about it.
Yeah, don't plan on getting on an airplane that day or doing anything. You know,
okay.
Right. I mean, that's why I think it's something we should, you know, I think it's a good thing for the town employees to have that day off. Plan on taking that day off, really.
I agree.
Get it on a Friday. We have control over what day of the week they get it.
I don't think there's any control over what it is. Yeah, it's just whenever the clinics, especially now with the short supply of vaccine, a lot of times they're calling folks. I don't think they're getting a whole lot of notice either. So there's also that, to be able to, I think, to go get the vaccine is also something to use as a sick day, you know, like, so it's, I don't know if it's you should be better by the morning of the next day. You're definitely feeling much, much better. For me, it was, I got it at 11 o'clock in the morning, and by the evening I was really feeling pretty bad. So, and other folks could feel bad the rest of that day. I don't know. We could look at it some more, but I think the extra sick day should be the day to get the vaccine. You get the vaccine and you're done, I guess, or the next day. It's hard to say, but we should definitely be giving folks a day or two, you know, for the vaccine, because there are 2 doses too.
So I'm just a little concerned if everybody, if, you know, we get on the list because the town, because they're town employees, that everybody gets it on the same day. So Chief Hatton, are you still on the call? Do you have any issues with your officers? Did they all get it on one day?
We were all vaccinated on the same day, but our second dose, I think, is scheduled out maybe on different days. I don't know. I honestly haven't asked everybody when their rescheduled date is. Mine's not Thursday, not next Thursday, but next Thursday. So I'll find out and see. And I mean, if folks are sick, that's good. But you know, they would be able to take the day off anyway. But I mean, if we give them an extra sick day, I mean, it's definitely a bonus if they are feeling bad. And Barbara, when I got my shot, my arm was really sore the next day, but I didn't have any health issues.
Oh, okay, good. I'm thinking maybe I won't.
Yeah, and it is shortly, within 24 hours, even the second dose, folks, 24, 36 hours, it definitely improves.
So at our next meeting, do you want options for 1 day and 2 days? What a sick day or vacation day would cost?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, we'll put that on the next agenda.
Thank you, Paige. Anything else?
Anything else budget-wise?
Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn our budget session?
I'll make the motion that we adjourn our budget session.
Thank you. There's Amanda. Can you take a poll?
David?
Yep.
Greg?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Barbara? Barbara?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Thank you all.